There's a video, Steve. This is a great one if you want to see MKUltra technology in action. It's one step beyond the sacred mushroom. Where
One step beyond the sacred mushroom.
One step beyond is the show name, and it's the sacred mushroom. It's on YouTube, and it's Puharish is there flashing lights in people's eyes, hypnotizing them to make them psychic. There's a portion, there it is.
Science is not yet given it
right there. Keep going.
Sort of, you don't, it's kind of hard to...
That's the early photic and magnetic stimulator that that MKUltra was using. Puharish developed
really?
to put people in their states. Yeah, it's an American version of the Lita machine from Russia.
Lower your head a little bit. A little more. Now.
Sounds awful.
It does. Sounds diabolical.
I see it. Now I see it. I see so many things I can't tell you. Can't you slow it? Slow it? Now I see but I see so many colors that are... Go... Are they pretty? In geometric signs, that now there's like great things. They're magnificent, is what they are. They're magnificent. I have never been so aware of color.
What is this thing actually doing?
After this, he goes off and does psychic testing on him and finds that he became much more accurate choosing cards. So it's opening up psychic ability. That was the intent, at least. But it's putting him in a hypnotic state. And this is his testing. He's doing dermo-optical vision, seeing through the fingers, which is, they actually studied this. It's in the congressional record.
Really?
Yeah. I'll tell you about that in a second. Now, when they did the church committee, they asked if they had any open projects still being done.
Turn the volume down on the video, Steve. It's pretty unsettling.
Yeah, they asked if they had any ongoing projects going for MKUltra, and they're like, we only have one, and it's a doctor who's testing a kid who can see through his hands in Orlando, and that was Puharish. So at that time, and then that started the ball rolling with a lot of things. But this was all going on behind the scenes as a portion of the Army and Navy and CIA's projects into mind control. There is always a psychic component to it on the side. I did a video about Dr. George Estabrooks and the FBI trying to shill his services to the FBI and going back and forth with J. Edgar Hoover about using Manchurian candidates in the 1930s with documents. So I proved this all out.
Really?
There's a paper trail for this. Yeah, as early as the 30s.
Do you think they're still doing this stuff today?
Oh shit, yes. They're just more sophisticated about it.
What do you think it looks like today? What do you think? What kind of stuff? What kind of tools do you think they're using today?
TikTok and Instagram.
Yeah,
I don't even think you. Right. I think an AI. I think you've asked. I think I saw one of your podcasts where you asked if an AI could hypnotize somebody or an AI could mind control somebody.
Right.
Absolutely. It's just a pattern of communication. Replicate that with an AI and figure out what the person's individual levers are to pull. And absolutely, we wouldn't even need a person to do it anymore.
Have you ever heard of something called the Brain Health Initiative?
Oh, what's that with?
Allegedly, this is like the new MKUltra that's based in, I think it's Mexico or somewhere in South America, and it was put together by Obama. If you search Obama Brain Health Initiative.
I'm not familiar with it.
And essentially, it has something to do with how all of the tech devices that we have, from our TVs to our phones to our computer screens, have this specific frequency of blue light. And it's not, what it does is it like hijacks our circadian rhythm and our dopamine system.
Sure, yeah.
And basically turns us into like dopamine slot machines.
Yeah, we went to Target last night. You got the blue lights around here in the parking lots.
Yeah.
Blue light carries more.
They're everywhere. Yeah.
More information than any other spectrum of light, and that's part of it. It could be part of it if you flip the switch on it.
And I also believe it was during the Obama years when they banned full spectrum light bulbs. I think it's incandescent light bulbs. They banned them because they're not efficient enough.
That sounds about right, but that's That's there was a lot of work that went on. We were republishing some of the works that we translated from Jacobo Grinberg. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's kind of an internet meme as well. He's the Mexican Puharish, basically.
Oh, really?
The MKUltra guy himself. And
how do you say his name?
Grinberg. It's Grinberg Zilberbaum, but it's Jacobo Jacobo Grinberg.
Jacobo.
Okay. Jacobo Grinberg. Yeah, we'd pronounce it that way. And he's the He did a ton of research into this. He did the Persinger experiments connecting minds between Mexico City and India in the 70s. So Persinger was recreating research when he was doing the correlation between two minds. So that's old research from the 70s that Grinberg was doing first. Grinberg was Israeli dual citizen, questionable if he was Mossad, came up, ended up going, escaping to the United States and disappearing. And but yeah, he's got some interesting stuff. He was at conferences with Puharish and John Keel and Jacques Vallée in Costa Rica for some of his work. So he was involved with all the groups as well. And they were doing Star Kid research. So the Valerie Ransone that I showed you, who was working with Puharish, hypnotizing kids to make them think that they were star kids, that they were contactees, whatever you want to consider that. He was doing that himself in Mexico City, running the same kind of experimentation on kids.
Have you ever heard of, I'm sure you have, you've heard of Whitley Strieber's story.
Yeah. And he was, you know where he grew up? He grew up in San Antonio.
In Texas, right?
He's got stories about how he was being taken to one of the Air Force bases in San Antonio between 1940, late 40s, early 50s, that era. But the era he says overlaps with when Jolyon West was the head of psychiatry at that same base.
Yeah.
So
he also talks about he was sent to Mexico to some secret place that he hates to talk about, but he did talk about it on one radio show back in the day, where he says that him and a bunch of other children were shown footage of dead people or people being murdered and told that they were responsible for the murders to induce some sort of trauma.
Yeah, that's part of creating an altar, splitting them off into somebody that you create a partition so that you don't remember the bad things if you're a little kid. And that bad stuff is still in the subconscious, and that could be used to create. That's what Esterbrook was doing with the FBI. He was doing it at civilian conservation corps camps during the Great Depression. He was driving around hypnotizing people and creating altars that he could hypnotically induce and come out and they could remember information. It's just the Manchurian Candidate story. But he was doing it 20 years before they were talking about it.
So how does that work? I'm not smart enough to understand how you can induce like some serious psychological trauma in a kid. And you're saying that they create a split personality, one that they suppress. Yeah,
kids got to go off with its life and have a healthy, happy life and try to be, somewhat functional. And if you give them enough trauma up front, like they got to partition that somewhere.
Yes.
And that partition part becomes a different person. For all intents and purposes, it's a different consciousness that can be programmed as a different, fully functioning person that could go out and interact with the world, gather information, come back. And the pisser about it is that one doesn't know the other one exists, and it doesn't remember what happened to the other one.
And how do you? So I'm assuming that the goal behind creating this separate person is to get them to work for them, to do like secret shit for.
You'd think so. That was the offer to, and it wasn't just an offer. They took him up on it. To J. Edgar Hoover, that I'm going to hypnotize 3 people, create an altar within them, send them off to FBI headquarters because they want to work for the FBI. Their normal personality will work for the FBI, and their alters can go off and infiltrate organized crime or be double agents that we can then mine afterwards and get information about those crime rings.
And how do they manage which person they are and what time they turn into what person?
Just a hypnotic induction. It is as simple as leading somebody through. Hypnosis at its core is organized fantasy. You're having somebody come along into a land of make-believe with you by talking them through it. And that can be extremely powerful. We think it's not something that could partition people off memory-wise and all that, but absolutely can. And it was figured out. They figured it out in the 1700s. There's Marquis de Puységur figured it out in the 1784. He published a book about how to hypnotize somebody and have them remember things in their somnambulistic state and not their waking state. And they've been doing it ever since. Oh, yeah.
Whoa.
200 years. The British.
So it's almost like that Severance show in real life.
I never watched that. Is that what it's about?
It's about basically these people that there's this huge company called Lumen where all the employees agree to have a brain chip installed in their brain to where they go to work, right, as their normal self. They get in the elevator. As soon as the elevator goes up to the severed floor, it flips a switch. It goes to another partition to where basically, essentially, when they leave work every day, they get in the elevator, they go down, and then their next memory is right back in the elevator going to work again. Yeah. And then their home life is completely separated from their work life.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. Only that is real. That literally exists. They were using it, James,
but without a brain chip, with some sort of hypnosis stuff.
Talking to people, just hypnosis. So what it was Back in the 1700s, you had Mesmer, Franz Anton Mesmer, and he was doing mesmerism. And we think that that's silly and hokey and old-timey. In the 1840s, they changed the name from mesmerism into hypnotism, Dr. James Braid, and he was using it to do surgery and amputations on people where they wouldn't remember their leg getting amputated in a war or something because they didn't have the medical facilities where he was deployed out. I think he was in the Southeast Asia for the British. He could hypnotize a person, do the surgery, bring them back, and they wouldn't remember the hard part, the bad part where they had their leg cut off, and it worked. And it continued on literally from the 1840s as part of medical hypnotism until the 1920s and 30s. But there was always another layer on that when people were in their somnambulistic state, they had psychic ability. You could take a person, sit them in a chair in one room, take a person to another room, another town, another city. They were doing it in France to other cities. Change the time on your pocket watch, and they'd know what time you were changing it to. It was a form of remote viewing. And this was going on for 150 years before we even knew any of that. And Estabrooks refined the technique. He used it in World War II for the Marines. He has a book where he created altars for the Marines in World War II. Actually, it was a magazine article where he admitted to that. He has a book that's a fictionalized version of that, and there's a document trail where he's doing it for the FBI in the 30s. Wow. So at least until then, it was being covered up by the Society for Psychical Research in Great Britain, where they were studying these things as well. And they were trying to figure out what the true potential of a hypnotized person actually was. It wasn't all spiritualism and table tipping and all that shit. That's a cover story for what they were actually able to accomplish. There's a ton of research in the old books about shit that we are just getting to right now, like Stanford research, remote viewing, and psychokinesis, stopping hearts, different
Stopping
things.
hearts?
Stopping hearts. One of the lines of research in Israel was they found out you can influence muscle tissue by focusing on it. You can cause it to contract, and they thought that they could turn that into a weapon to cause a heart attack.
Jesus
Christ. It's crazy how much it's right there under the surface. If people would only research a little bit deeper, it's all right there. It hasn't been hidden except by neglect. People just don't look that far down.